Have you ever opened your wallet and felt your heart sink? Have you ever looked inside and realized there was almost nothing left? No money, no plan, no certainty about tomorrow. Today's story is about a young man who faced exactly that moment. A man who had only $1 left. $1. One final choice. And a decision that changed his life forever. Welcome to IQ English Podcast. I'm Mary. And this is The Empty Wallet That Changed Everything. The fall. David was 24 years old. A year earlier, life had looked completely different. He had a steady job, a small apartment, a few savings, and dreams for the future. Nothing extraordinary, but enough. Enough to feel safe. Enough to feel hopeful. Then everything changed. The company he worked for began losing money. Rumors spread through the office. People whispered in hallways. Managers looked worried. One Friday afternoon, David was called into a meeting. His manager looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, David. We have to let some people go." David already knew what was coming. His stomach tightened. His hands became cold. The next few minutes felt like a blur. When he walked out of the building carrying a small cardboard box, he no longer had a job. Running out of time. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. David applied for jobs everywhere. Restaurants, stores, offices, warehouses, anywhere. Every morning he woke up hopeful. Every evening he went to bed disappointed. His savings slowly disappeared. Rent, electricity, food, transportation. The numbers kept shrinking. Until one evening, he sat alone in his apartment. He opened his wallet. Inside was a single dollar bill. Nothing else. No credit cards. No savings. No backup plan. Just $1. David stared at it for a long time. Then he laughed. Not because it was funny. Because he didn't know what else to do. The choice. The next morning, hunger filled his stomach. He hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. A nearby cafe sold sandwiches. $1 was enough to buy something small. As he walked toward the cafe, he stopped outside a printing shop. In the window he saw a sign. Resume printing, $1. David stood still. $1. One choice. Food or opportunity. His stomach wanted food. His future wanted a chance. For several minutes he simply stood there, thinking, worrying, doubting. Finally, he walked into the printing shop. The last dollar. The owner smiled. How can I help you? David handed over a USB drive. I need one copy of my resume. The man printed it. David watched the machine work. Page after page. His last dollar disappeared. And now he had nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just a single sheet of paper. When he walked back outside, fear hit him. What if this doesn't work? What if I wasted my last dollar? What if everyone says no again? But deep down, another voice whispered, what if one person says yes? Rejection again. The next 3 days were brutal. David visited company after company, office after office, reception desk after reception desk. Most people barely looked at him. Some said, "We'll call you." They never did. Others said, "We're looking for someone with more experience." One manager didn't even take the resume. David left feeling smaller each day. By the end of the 3rd day, he had received nothing. No interviews. No offers. No hope. That night he sat on a park bench. The city lights glowed in the distance. Cars passed by. People laughed. Life continued. Yet David felt completely invisible. Maybe he had made the wrong choice. Maybe the sandwich would have been better. At least he wouldn't be hungry. The stranger. As David sat alone, an elderly man approached. The man noticed the resume beside him. Tough day? David nodded. You could say that. The old man sat down. For a few moments neither of them spoke. Then the stranger asked, "How many places today?" 12. The old man smiled. Only 12? David looked surprised. Only? The man laughed. When I was your age, I visited 32 companies before someone hired me. David shook his head. 32? Yes. The old man looked at him seriously. Most people stop too early. They quit right before life changes. David listened carefully. The stranger stood up. Then he said something David would never forget. Opportunity often arrives wearing the clothes of disappointment. And then he walked away. One more door. The next morning, David woke up determined. He had nothing left to lose. One more company. One more door. One more chance. That was all he wanted. Around noon, he entered a small marketing company. The office wasn't impressive. The furniture was old. The walls were plain. But something felt different. The receptionist accepted his resume. A few minutes later, a manager walked out. He looked at David. Then at the resume. Then back at David. "You've been looking for work a long time?" David nodded. "Several months." The manager studied him carefully. Most people would have tried to hide their struggles. David didn't. He was honest. And somehow, that honesty stood out. The interview. The manager invited him inside. An interview began immediately. For over an hour they talked. About work. About challenges. About failure. About persistence. At one point the manager asked, "Why should I hire you?" David thought for a moment. Then answered, "Because I know what it feels like to fail." The manager raised an eyebrow. David continued, "And because every day I chose to get back up and keep going." Silence filled the room. The manager smiled. That answer was different. Real. Human. Honest. The phone call. 3 days later, David's phone rang. His hands trembled. He answered. "Hello?" The voice on the other side said, "David?" "Yes. We'd like to offer you the position." For a moment, he couldn't speak. His eyes filled with tears. Months of struggle. Months of rejection. Months of fear. Finally, a door had opened. Years later. 5 years later, David stood in a modern office overlooking the city. The young man with the empty wallet was gone. Now he was leading a successful team. One afternoon, a new employee asked him, "What's the best decision you ever made?" David smiled. Then he opened an old drawer. Inside was a faded $1 bill. The employee looked confused. David held it carefully. "This What do you mean? David smiled. This dollar taught me that sometimes your last resource can become your first opportunity. Maybe life feels difficult right now. Maybe you're facing rejection. Maybe you're running out of hope. If so, remember David. Remember that empty wallet. Remember that last dollar. Because your biggest opportunity may be hiding inside your hardest moment. Thank you for listening to IQ English Podcast. If today's story inspired you, share it with someone who needs encouragement. And remember, keep learning, keep growing, keep believing. Because one decision can change everything.